back to the Phase podcast. I'm Emily, and this is the second episode in our series on building resilience. There is a big misconception that resilience is something we either have or we don't have, but there are so many ways that we can build our resilience and learn to respond to situations differently. In this episode, we are discussing what some of those things could be, but also sharing the barriers and the struggles in trying to do that. Okay, so we've talked a bit about what resilience is, and when we might have shown it, and I love those 3 examples, Erica, that you gave of adaptive, transformational and recovery resilience, and I think that's really helpful for us to kind of hold on to as we continue to discuss it. But I want to think now, how do we get it? Because we've shared that some of us find it hard to be resilient in certain situations or might not be as resilient as other people. There might be people listening who feel like they're not very resilient. So what do we do?
So I've got an example of like the sort of bouncing forward, the transformational resilience. And earlier I said, I think it's something that I've grown. I've become better at being resilient. And I think that part of it was going through this transformation. So was it 2.5 years ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic, my mother died and we were moving house and my husband was a key worker and he was working every hour and the kids were at home, they were being homeschooled, and so all of this bad stuff just happened all at once. And now when I look back at it, it was only about a 5 months, like a 5-week period, but it felt like a lifetime at the time. It was really challenging, and I just thought, do you know what, I can't let this get on top of me. I can't let this sink me. What can I do? And this is where I started looking into strategies to deal with how I was feeling, to come out a little bit more resilient, so I was there for the kids. And the first thing I started looking at was circles of control. I couldn't control what was going on in the outside world, but I could control what was happening in our house and who I was and the way I was getting up in the morning. I could do all of that. So I started not worrying about anything that I couldn't control. I turned off social media, I turned off the news, and I just focused on what was within our control, within our little family unit. I also started looking a lot more at the way I talk to myself. Positive self-talk. I changed the word this problem, that problem into this challenge, that challenge. Rather than going, oh my God, I can't do that. I sort of say, okay, reframe, how can I do that? And that then gives you possibilities. It realises that you can do that. And again, I started using the word yet at the end of everything. Oh, I can't do that yet. Again, it just opens up possibilities. I started realising I was talking to myself in a way that you would never even talk to your worst enemy. Familiar situation. Yeah. And I started changing that way that I spoke to myself into a little bit more care, a little bit more compassion, giving myself grown-up choices. I'd cut out all of the I should, and changed it to I could, which automatically makes you go, oh, I could do that, but I also might not, and that's okay. So I cut out all of those shoulds. Another thing that I did is gratitude. That was a game changer. I can remember waking up one morning, I think it was probably a couple of days after the funeral, it wasn't a funeral, there was only 5 of us there, feeling really low. And I challenged myself that day to write 100 things that I was grateful for.
Wow.
I got to 150 before my husband said, come on, I really need some food for lunch.
Wow.
But that really changed that mindset that things were awful, but there was also an awful lot of good stuff and an awful lot of things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And when I started doing that, things really started changing around. And I think it was you, Amanda, that said as well, asking for help. And this was, again, my change in the way I viewed things, is asking for help in my house and in my family, sign of weakness. And I suddenly started thinking, actually, It's a vulnerability and it's a strength. It takes a strong person to go, do you know what, I need some help right now. And I started asking for help, and I signed up to a resilience course, and I ended up being coached. I had a wellbeing coach, and I started being proactive and pragmatic. And again, these things all taken together really made the world of difference and made me be able to grow and bolt on. And I would say that I have bounced forward because I feel happier, more resilient, and more able to deal with life's challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that.
Amazing.
And loads of really key strategies in there as well. And what's interesting about your story is that a lot of that stuff is really conscious. That was a real choice that you made to be resilient, to learn how to be resilient, to find those strategies, to put them in place. I wonder, did you feel like you saw the effects instantly, or was it like, I just know I need to start doing these things and it...
Some things, yes. The day that I challenged myself to write 150 things that I was grateful for, about 100, 150. And I did it across my whole life. It wasn't just that day. The change in mood was unmistakable. And it really, really helped. And I'd say, I was about 10% more positive, at least by the end of the day, let alone the end of the week. That really helped. The circles of control as well. That was almost like an instant fix. As soon as you let go of the things that you can't change.
It's a diversion of energy, isn't it?
Of course. All of my energy was going on getting angry with the politicians and, it's just like, this isn't serving a purpose here.
No. Yeah.
It's not helping me at all. So if I turned off all of those distractions, but I think the thing that's had the most lasting effect is the change in self-talk. Being kinder, being more compassionate, the way I change a word, and I pick myself up on it all the time. I never say should anymore. Always I could.
I really like that.
And then it makes me make a grown-up decision and realise that everything is a choice. It's not, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Why haven't you done that? And it removes the internal guilt. And goes, yes, I could be doing this, but I choose not to. It brings that choice element in.
Yeah, so you've talked in there a few different strategies about control, gratitude, self-talk, taking those shoulds, turning them into kids. I like that. I don't know if anyone else has got things that they think, how do we build that resilience? And a lot of the ones that Erica's spoken about are conscious choices. I don't know if there's examples that you've got of things that maybe aren't quite so conscious, but ways that you have built resilience in your own life.
Yeah, I think for me is, I definitely echo a lot of what Erica said, but to add to it, I think it's understanding what resilience is how you get through something. It's also that, what do I need around that's going to promote that resilience? So, for myself, I'm always aware that physical activity is a massive stress reliever for me. So actually then when I do that gives me capacity to think, right, how do I solve this problem? What can I control, what can't I control? So, it just sort of gives me a clear head. Another one for me is actually having good good people around me. So it's good relationships. That's, very lucky. I've got a wife, I've got good family, I've got some really good friends that I can be vulnerable with, so I can be really open and honest. And I think as a male, I'm aware that not every male has that, but that's something I've chosen to work and craft on. I'm very, very blessed to have some friends that are willing to ask me tough questions, but are also willing to listen to me when I'm sad or cry or whatever. And probably about 2 years ago I had some big health issues, and I still remember I had this moment of, actually I didn't want to talk about it because that made it real. But as soon as I had that thought, I thought I have to talk about it because it is real. I can't change it. And so it was speaking to those those really close friends, say, right, this is what I think I need to do. And much of it was out of my hands because it was doctors and nurses and whatnot had to do stuff, but it was that every day. And then with that, right, I need to make sure I'm staying physically active, because I know that stuff for me is a big stress reliever, as well as, it might sound silly, but laughter. Absolutely being able to, it probably drives my wife Claire, crazy some days that, it's almost, there's no situation I can't joke about. But for me, that's a way of being resilient. 'Cause if I can see the lighter side of things, even when things are tough, if I can laugh about that, it gives me a bit of joy. It gives me a bit of an ability to just be able to manage that and be okay.
Yeah.
Those relationships, know what keeps me sane, that physical activity, and then that joy, that humour.
So we obviously talk a lot in schools about building resilience, about it being like a muscle, the skills and the strategies that we can use. But I'm wondering as well, is it something that we've got full control over, or are some people born with an advantage or slightly more resilient, or with obstacles to being resilient? Is it something that we say and we make it sound easy? And I'm just wondering how easy or difficult that is in real life.
I think everyone does have that natural resilience, and a lot of people don't know how resilient they are until they are tested. But there are some people that you look around and you just think, how do you keep getting back up again? I mean, someone like Richard Branson, for example, who's had so many life-threatening accidents, and he just seems to just pick himself up, dust himself off, go and do the next crazy thing. I think there are some people who genetically can be more predisposed.
Does it?
A bit like physical fitness.
Yeah.
There are some people who are just fitter.
Just as we were talking, it made me think, especially as you mentioned Richard Branson, is it around those that are risk averse or risk embracing? How does that play into it again, which comes down to maybe personality type, like say whether it's that predisposition. Again, as I just reflect on myself, that I would say I'm quite a risk embracing person. So does that mean that I go into something with more of a can-do attitude, or whatever the situation, I'll make the most of it? I don't know, is it also then about how you cognitively face things for those that have got more problem solving, maybe analytical skills?
But I wonder as well, we've talked, obviously there's so much in resilience, there's so much to it, that actually maybe somebody might be more risk averse but understand their emotions better, or be better at asking for help, or have more positive self-talk and feel more positive about things, whereas somebody else might be a real risk taker but maybe really hard on themselves for making mistakes or whatever it is. So I'm almost answering my own question. I'm an outward process, so what can I say? But yeah, I just wonder, there's so much to it that we're not all good at all of it, and we might be better at some things and we have to learn the other things or put ourselves in those situations.
Do you think risk takers are then naturally more resilient because they know that they'll get through it? Or do you think they just don't necessarily think about all the associated risks?
And is it that risk takers, they like risk and so they are more resilient, or they like risk so they take more risks, and because they take more risks, that experience, they learn from that experience to be more resilient? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, and grow their confidence.
Because our life experience and being out, we talk about it a lot, being out of our comfort zone helps us to grow our resilience. So if you're naturally a risk taker, you're probably getting out of your comfort zone more, experiencing more, learning from those experiences, and therefore becoming more resilient.
Because I think, just as you said, I think one of the things that does, whether it's a giant risk or a small risk, is that it shows you that you can do something. Comes to that self-talk, but even if it's I can only walk a mile, that's it, that's all I could do. Well, maybe tomorrow I just walk a mile, and then one more street along, suddenly you realise my legs haven't fallen off. And I think that's a big part, and it's that yes, I started this by saying yes, I am resilient, but that's been over my whole lifetime to get there. I can't transport back to when I was super young, but I look back, I think maybe it was just that daily growth. Taking a chance to think, right, how do I, what's that next step I can take? And I do think that's a big thing when we and it comes down to that self-talk you were talking about, Erica, but limiting ourselves, whether it is that I can't, or just looking at the obstacle and seeing it too big instead of, a good friend of mine says, how do you eat an elephant? It's like, well, one bite at a time, just taking out what's that little bit I can do, that comfortably uncomfortable, instead of thinking I'm I'm at A and I don't have to get to Z. Yeah. Actually, I don't need to. I just need to get to B, and then once I'm at B and I know what that is, I can work out C, D, E.
Yeah.
There's that quote, isn't it? It's like, it's not looking at like the whole staircase, but just looking at like the next step. And I think that's a really kind of key thing. Just looking at that one thing that's ahead of you, trying to be more present, more focused, and kind of not becoming overwhelmed by sort of the bigger picture or everything else that's happening.
I think as well, just thinking back to you saying you like risk, and I would say I'm definitely not a risk taker. I'm a worrier. But I have that determination. So I just remember one example where I was with my family and we were in a church, and we had the opportunity to climb right up to the tower. And at the top of the tower, you could see the whole city. It was beautiful. So we went up. So you go up a spiral staircase, fine. Then you have to go up a ladder. And then I went halfway up the ladder. And then once you're in that little bit of a loft, there's another ladder that's pretty like horizontal, and there's not much underneath. And then you have to climb on beams, and there's nothing under the beams to get to the top. Anyway, so one by one, everybody's going up. I got halfway up the ladder, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do this. So I came down and thought, oh, I'll let everyone else go so I don't hold them up. Then they went up again. Then I went up again. And I still was like, oh, I just can't do it. So I came down, and then I was really upset, and I could hear them all like, oh my goodness, it's amazing. Really beating myself up, cried, made a right scene about it. Anyway, they all start coming down, and I'm like, I can't leave and not have done it. So then eventually, just as everyone's ready, I make myself go up and do it. But I think, and I would say that happens to me a lot, but I don't like taking the risk, and I'm not excited for that, but I don't like not getting through the situation.
And I think that, there's aspects to that as well, isn't there? The sense of, did you, that when you went up, even the first time, had you gone further than you've ever been in a situation like that? Because I think it's important that, resilience isn't always about it coming out right. But it's, have I been that bit more resilient today than I was yesterday? Have I, again, that sense of, have I taken one step further today than I did yesterday? Maybe I haven't got to where I want to be, but how do I use that determination that, it's great you managed to do it in that day, but do I have to go back tomorrow? And tomorrow I'll try and get one more rung on that ladder. And that, I think, is resilience. And one of the things I want to make sure young people know, that it's not, or anybody, adult, young, whatever, it's not always about it coming out the best. But have I managed to do today, get through today, and actually, make it that bit further on the journey, and tomorrow I can be that bit more resilient.
Doesn't this sort of then kind of lend itself to, isn't resilience all about a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset? Those people who do have fixed mindsets that I can't do this, I can't do that, don't learn from the mistakes, and can be very risk averse because they never want to fail unless they're naturally good. I think that makes them less resilient. And I'd say that is where I used to be sort of 10 years ago. I had very much a fixed mindset, and opening up and thinking more about that growth mindset is like, every opportunity is an opportunity to learn. Every mistake is a way of reflecting and going, okay, that's how I learn. And I think that's a key message as well, if we're talking about young people, to get across to them.
One thing that I feel really encouraged by about this conversation is that we're kind of saying resilience it looks different for everybody, because it's much more about our mindset and about our perspective than looking like a particular response. That actually it is different for all of us, and some of us will be good at certain parts of it and have to learn and grow in other parts of it. But it's not that stereotypical idea of like, I can do this and I don't need any help and I'm strong and nothing affects me. But actually there's much more elements to it, and all of us have bits in there that we'll be naturally better at, and things that we can learn as well. I hope you enjoyed that conversation and that you found it helpful. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Phase Hitchin.